Hello, Stacey Conroy.
Hello.
Oh, no.
Not too much. Not too much.
Well, welcome once again to our monthly OCD and SUD webinar. And you want to tell everyone about our fun little SIG that we've got going on through the International OCD Foundation and all the work we're doing?
Absolutely. So we have the OCD SUD Recovery is Possible Special Interest Group. If you want to be added to our email list, there are a few ways to go about doing that. We are now listed as one of the SIGs on the International OCD website.
Woot woot!
Yeah, finally. And there's a contact us form on that site. So you can go there. You can see our SIG, other SIGs. There's a lot of information up on that site now. And if you fill out the contact us form or seeking new members form, that will send an email that will get forwarded to me. The other way
you are us, by the way. Yes.
Yes. So, yes. I am us. And you can also go to our website, which is www.ocdsud.com. And there's a contact us form on that site as well. And we can add you to the email group where we send out information about different happenings, such as these webinars, the information from the IOCDF, research articles that are being written at a pace of one every millennia. But when I do find them, if they're public access, we'll share the entire article. If they're not public access, we'll share the reference. But any resources that are out there that you know about for OCD and SUD, we have some resources that are specific to SUD and some resources that are specific to OCD. And then we have some that talk about both on the website. So we're really just trying to get the message out and what resources there are. And it is growing. That is the good news. It's growing. But we want people to engage and find these resources.
Exactly. So, well, it's been a month, I think. Very fun our first time around. So, hey, let's just do this monthly and see where we go. As always, for everyone joining, this is priority-wise. We're going to address any questions that come through on OCD and co-occurring substance abuse. But if you have other questions as well, too, and we don't have some of those, we're happy to answer some of those things as well. And my friend Stacey and I will be happy to do it. So I am Patrick McGrath. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer at NoCD and have been doing OCD treatment for 23 years now, and was fortunate enough to get also involved in helping people who have co-occurring substance use disorders. And thanks to some good acquaintances like Margaret Sisson and the Riley's Wish Foundation, and getting to do great work with her and her organization, and some of the work that I did in opening up some treatment centers as well too. It's been a joy to help people who are dealing with both of these concerns and make sure that they get the treatment that they need. And how about for you, Stacey?
And my name is Stacey Conroy. I am a licensed clinical social worker who has several years of treating co-occurring disorders, SUD, OCD, PTSD, general anxiety, and I'm also an individual in recovery from all three, SUD, PTSD, and OCD. So I have
the trifecta there.
Yes, for you. Trifecta. Yes. It also gives me a dual perspective. I've lived the treatment as well as provided the treatment. So when people tell me ERP is hard, I'm like, yeah, no, I remember that. Yes, it is hard. And guess what? It's still worth it.
Yeah. I think we'll let people, there's some comments and things coming in, so we'll let some build up here just a little bit, and then we'll get to some stuff. But I'm curious about in terms of substance use. I've talked about the fact that we need to broaden our ideas of safety behaviors. We very often discussed things like avoidance or reassurance or distraction, but I've been really pushing for adding substance use as another safety behavior that people utilize as a way to deal with their intrusive thoughts or images or urges or whatever other anxiety types of provoking things are popping into their head. And with the work that you've done so very much, Stacey, can you talk to people just a little bit about how that similarity is there between OCD and SUD? Because I've often described it as both are seeking immediate gratification, right? If you don't use a substance, you're going into withdrawal, and if you don't do a compulsion, your obsessions are just raging and growing, and it's kind of like the monster from It. They just get bigger and bigger the more you believe them. Yeah. So love to hear your opinion on that.
Well, what often gets substituted for the word obsession in the OCD model is craving. But a craving is an obsession, and it has some biological and some psychological components to it. And when you get these cravings that will not let go until you engage in a certain type of behavior, substance use, then you get stuck in this pattern, and use then becomes compulsive. So you do have those safety behaviors even in substance use disorder. You use to deal with your emotions. You use to avoid unwanted physical sensations such as withdrawal, or with alcohol, the shakes, hangovers, the old myth, a little bit of the hair of the dog that bit you.
Yeah.
So there are some similarities in sort of the mental gymnastics that people go through with both disorders. And as we talked about before, and is true, neither one of them is ever satisfied.
Right.
So no matter what you do or how many times you do it or how often you do it, it's not enough.
Yeah.
And that becomes really problematic. And when you're fighting off both. But when you use substances, I've always said, will they quiet things down for you? Yes, they will. It's temporary. Doing the compulsion also quiets things down. So,
and it's temporary too. Yeah.
Yes. So it is really a safety behavior or an avoidance behavior in order to get things to emotionally change.
Right. Eric says, always use marijuana to get joy from life now. Joy's in quotes. Any thoughts on THC and OCD? And also says, I'm on Adderall from my doctors. Any correlation between the two? Had OCD before either substance. I'll take the Adderall piece just real quick on that. My concern always is going on a stimulant can increase OCD's ramping around in your brain, right? It just revs it up potentially. And this is why a lot of kids who are initially seen as having OCD or ADHD, but who might actually have OCD instead, they're just doing mental compulsions and experience so many obsessions that it seems like they're not paying attention in class. When given a stimulant, get worse instead of better. So you can see that, but I'll let you take the THC part and that idea of, Stacey, do you really want to take my marijuana away from me because it's the only thing bringing me joy in my life? And my reply is always, well, do some ERP and let OCD go away, and then you could have some joy in your life as well too. But I'd love your take on it.
Yeah. Well, many studies have shown us that THC in the long run can increase anxiety. I mean, that is a fact of multiple studies, not so much with OCD, but with general anxiety. And you can get some relief in the short run, but in the long run, the anxiety is still there. The other thing about marijuana is right now it's the cure-all. Everybody says, oh, it works for everything. I have not heard a diagnosis yet that marijuana doesn't, quote unquote, work for. But what they do not tell people is for a percentage of people, And I've seen studies with 30% or 40% of individuals who smoke marijuana regularly will become addicted to it. Just like with alcohol. Some people can use alcohol and don't have any problems with it. But there's a percentage of the population where that itself will become a problem. So,
could you speak a little more on that? Because how many people have you heard say to you, but you can't get addicted to marijuana?
Oh, yes, there's this misnomer out there, and part of it is the medical fields, I don't want to say fault, but I'll say fault. And that is, since you can't get admitted to detox for marijuana, people think you can't get addicted to it. We do have a cannabis use disorder in the DSM-5.
Correct.
It's like we have an alcohol use disorder.
And nicotine use disorder.
Yes. And part of that is there's no medical detox. You can't be admitted to detox where we monitor you for a medical withdrawal and give you medications. There's no medical detox for cocaine. Many people who want to go into detox for cocaine have to fudge the truth a little bit and say they've been drinking and need an alcohol detox, or else insurance won't cover it.
Really?
Yep. Yes, because there's no medical detox. You're not at risk of dying from detoxing from cocaine or from marijuana. You are from opiates and from alcohol. Alcohol withdrawal can, in fact, kill you. Nobody should do that unsupervised. Correct. If they have a drinking problem.
Yes.
You should always, always, always seek professional help, because there's something called delirium tremors. That is a life-threatening condition where people start to hallucinate and have violent shakes, possibly seizures, go into a coma. You can end up in the ICU from alcohol withdrawal if your substance use, if your alcohol use has been severe enough. Now, with marijuana, you're just going to have some, unwanted, not body aches like opiate withdrawal, but you won't feel good. You'll be tired. You'll be achy. You won't be able to focus very well when it's moving out of your system. The other thing is marijuana stores in fat cells, so it can stay there for up to 30 days. Whereas alcohol comes out of your system very quickly, marijuana does not. So there can be a prolonged withdrawal from marijuana. So people say, I can't get addicted because I don't go to detox for it. There's no, coming off of it. There's no syndrome. I'm not going to have a seizure. But that doesn't mean that your body doesn't go through a chemical and biological process of having that substance removed from your body. So.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
I think that's very helpful for people to know. I'll
add one more thing, though, before you get to
a question. Yes.
People also think you can't get intoxicated on marijuana. But actually, the data from various ERs around the country has shown us that people come into the ER with severe levels of marijuana intoxication to the point where they're hallucinating or having GI symptoms of vomiting or diarrhea. So you can overdo it on marijuana just like you can overdo it on alcohol.
Oh, yeah. How many people, when states have approved THC, took a gummy and said, I don't feel anything, so I'll take another one. I still don't feel it. And then by the time they got their third or fourth one in, we're not doing very well, right?
Yeah.
Because Eric replied, he said, 100% I'm addicted to it. Only thing that seems to slow everything down. I get anxious when running low on THC. If I'm on THC, am I allowing any growth with ERP if under the influence? The issue, of course, with under the influence is, and Stacey, we've talked about this a lot, the idea of state-dependent learning, where when you do ERP under a certain condition, then you learn how to do ERP under that condition. And it doesn't transfer all that well outside of that condition, right? So I did a senior thesis on social anxiety, and we had blinded 9 days of pills. 3 days were a placebo, 3 days were a benzodiazepine, and 3 days were a beta blocker. And we would have the person come in the morning, do one ERP exercise, take one of the pills, wait for 1 hour, and then do some more ERP exercises. And then they would come back the next day and do an ERP exercise. And then we would measure that morning one after that first day to see what their level was. And what we found is that when people took a beta blocker or a placebo, they had learning. Their anxiety level was lower the next day. But when they took a benzodiazepine, it was just as high as it was the day before. There was no learning that was transferring when people were on the benzodiazepine. So that's an example of state-dependent learning. If you're not in the state that you learned how to do the ERP in, you could be interfering in being able to do ERP outside of that state.
Yes. And generally what I recommend with individuals I work with is I'm willing to walk a path with people. I've worked with ERP with people who are still smoking marijuana, but then when they tell me I'm not really getting better, I say, well, let's take it to a new trial. I say, don't smoke marijuana before or right after you do ERP.
Correct.
So don't smoke it before you come to session where we're practicing the ERP and moving through things. And then when you're doing your homework, no smoking before or after the ERP. And generally people start to get more response from the ERP. And then I say, let's take it one step further. Let's not use marijuana for the next 6 weeks and double down on the ERP.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had people then improve exponentially with the ERP. And I've had some people are like, okay, I've gone without, I don't have as many, intrusive thoughts or compulsive behaviors. I'm good. And I've had people go, I'm really glad my OCD is under control. Where's my marijuana?
Yeah. Right.
But for me, the point is I really want to get you to a better place with the OCD because then I feel you have more options.
Yeah. I've always loved when we pick people up from inpatient to bring them to the residential, and they'd been in there for like 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes for some complicated withdrawals and things. And I'd be like, this is an excellent opportunity to stop smoking. And they'd be, because now you've gone 3 weeks without a cigarette, you can handle it, right? And boy, did they just want nothing to listen to, but about that at all. They just wanted that cigarette all over again. So.
Well, I used to get a kick out of it. I'd be outside on the gazebo at the treatment center I worked at. We're having a staff meeting on the gazebo so we can all smoke our cigarettes while we talk about treating addiction.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Didn't think that one through.
No. Got some more questions here, though. Would SSRIs relate to this state-dependent learning? No, because they work on a different area in the brain than some of the other drugs that we're talking about. So they're not considered in that mind-altering type of substance that you would see as some of the other drugs, legal or illegal, like marijuana or cocaine or something of that nature. So different receptors and different neurotransmitters also worked on as well too. So you wouldn't see a state-dependent learning on an SSRI. But here's one for you, Stacey, that would be interesting. Would drinking coffee affect OCD?
Well, again, anything that you do in excess can cause a challenge. And it's interesting that this question came up because I saw a patient today and we were going to work on developing their hierarchy and they came in literally shaking. And I was like, are you okay? He goes, yeah, I had 5 coffees. Mm-hmm. There was no way we were going to get through his hierarchy today. So it did interfere right there in the moment.
Right.
So again, caffeine is a drug and a lot of detoxes and substance use disorder programs either don't have it or only have it in the morning. And part of that is so you can drink other things and get detoxify out of your body. So waters and juices and such are pushed. But if you're drinking a pot of it a day, it could because it does have a significant stimulant effect on your body.
Which could be like the ADHD drugs that are stimulants as well too, and why you would see it could lead to some racing thoughts for some
But
people.
I think if you have a cup or two per day, that's not going to affect it. So again, with anything in moderation, you're probably in a better place.
Good. Another one about prescribed medicine. So like we said, prescribed medicines besides benzodiazepines really wouldn't interfere with this and the state-dependent learning, but definitely why we in the psychology kind of areas versus the psychiatry areas are not huge fans of benzodiazepines, because they can interfere with treatment, and so we don't want that.
Yes. Interestingly enough, one of the reasons benzodiazepines are used in alcohol detox is because they work on the same neurochemicals in the brain. So if you're excessively drinking or taking benzodiazepines, you can have the same interference effect. They both also hit the reward pathway, which SSRIs do not.
Yeah. And, we're not saying don't take meds or anything like that as well, too. If you've been prescribed certain things, work with your psychiatrist. And not everybody's going to experience necessarily state-dependent learning, but there's a greater opportunity for it on some of these medications than there isn't. So that's why we just want to bring this to people's attention to let everybody know that that's the case, right? But always talk with your treatment providers and who's prescribed you things about all of this as well, too, because they may have other rationales for why they've prescribed certain things to you as well, too. But just know that there are these linkages between some prescribed and some non-prescribed things that could lead to some state-dependent learning. So we just like to bring that awareness out to people so that everyone's aware of it. And maybe if you're taking some of these drugs, legal or illegal, and noticing that ERP isn't giving you the effect that you want, that could be the reason why you're not getting the effectiveness out of the ERP that you would like to get, because some of these things are actually interfering with the process.
Correct. And I will say things that treat particularly opiate dependence like Suboxone or methadone, if you are not doing anything additional to enhance them, will bring you to what's called a steady state after a few weeks. And so you do not get that reward pathway or that state-dependent learning process if you're on those, because you're on a therapeutic dose and you're in that steady state. There's no highs, there's no lows, there's no up or down. So I do want to distinguish those medications from others that do interfere with learning processes.
Yeah. Any other new things that are out, Stacey, that everyone should be aware of? Probably not many new studies, like we said at the beginning, or anything like that.
I'm still waiting for the researchers to find us.
Yeah. But. I am excited, though, that there's more and more people out, like our good friend Lauren and Margaret, who are talking about, what it's like to have these things happen in the family, or how they've struggled on their own and come through it. Yourself being really one of the pioneers in this, coming out of talking about your own struggles with these things and how you've, come, the 180 degrees you've done to going from having and using to treating and helping. And just what a great, I've always appreciated that about you, and think that it's great that we get to work together on this. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I appreciated it until last month when I learned that you have these thoughts about pushing me down the stairs.
Always, yes. But anybody else on the stairs next to me is also subject to the same thought. So it's not it's not just you. Yeah. You can't treat the about 40 people I've treated in my career who have that intrusive thought without just absorbing that as an intrusive thought yourself, right? Because I think that surprises a lot of people, actually, that though I don't have OCD, I pretty much experience all the intrusive thoughts of anyone I've ever treated, because I've talked about them so much that they've just become a part of me and my brain. So like, I can't pass cemeteries without thinking about death germs, because I've treated people who are afraid of death germs. And if I go past churches, I think the most blasphemous thoughts in the entire world. And because I've treated so many people with scrupulosity, just all of these things that pop into my head, no matter what it is I'm doing, they're always there. And it's like, okay, well, there we go.
Yep.
There's that thought. Matilda said she had a thought on the metro, like you could totally push someone. Yeah. And I many people know this, but I once spent 3 hours with a foot away from a train track with someone behind me telling them to push me into every train that came by. So I'm a big proponent of going out and facing that fear and doing that very thing and learning that you can handle it. I think it's very, very important for everybody to do. So, all right. Well, let's see. We're getting some great questions on there, so thank you all. There's some other ones that have come through too. Maybe we could take a look at. Some people are asking, what are the best medications for OCD racing thoughts? I don't know that there's a best medication. There is more and more look now at like genetic research, though, to see from your gene profile will tell you maybe what the best medications are. So I haven't seen that there's a best medication for a subtype of OCD necessarily, but there may be better medications based on your genetic code than others are. But do you have any other things on that, Stacey?
No, I've seen people react and respond to different medications. So there's not one best. Sometimes people have to try different ones. Yeah. To find the right one.
Darla threw in that Wednesday night. Oh yeah, last Wednesday she had told me she quit picking her face after 20 years of doing so. So congratulations.
Hey, congrats.
Excellent. I love that. Jane asks, how can we stay away from scary thoughts? And my answer is, we cannot. Stacey, you want to add anything else to that, or?
No. Well, I chuckle because I spent so much time trying to do that. I mean, I worked really, really hard on that one.
You sure did work really hard on that. How did that turn out for you?
Yeah. No, I still have them, but they no longer have that control. I mean, I'm more like, okay, thank you for that. And I've named the thoughts in my head, no matter what they're related to, little dude. So I'm like, yep, little dude. I'm like, thanks, little dude. Mm-hmm. I got to go to Disney now.
Yeah. Which is your favorite place on earth.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. But you can never really, truly get rid of them. And if that's your goal, you're not going to be successful. But how you interact with them and the power you give them, because OCD thoughts have zero value.
I was working recently with somebody who said they were thinking about going to a treatment center for another mental health disorder because they were afraid, what if I have it? Though they don't have any symptoms of it actually, but they were afraid for the last almost year, what if they did have it, and maybe they should go get treatment for it. And so my reply was, well, then I'm going to start chemotherapy tomorrow, because even though my doctor did a check and said I don't have any cancer, it might be good just to get treatment for it, just in case something was missed. And can you imagine walking into a chemotherapy center and saying, yes, I'm here for chemo. I know I don't have a cancer diagnosis, but I would really like to get chemotherapy just in case I do have cancer, so that it will kill it and I'll be okay. Right? They would call security on you, most likely. I mean, they would not let you in, and they would not give you any of those drugs if you did not have an actual diagnosis for something. So OCD, can be very, very convincing, right? Yes. And that's the one thing that all of us should really pay a lot of attention to, right? I mean, you think about how convincing fear is. If you get bad news, some people just double over in pain because their stomach hurts so much, right? Because you get that instantaneous kind of feeling, like you feel, literally people say it felt like I got punched in the gut. And we use the term trust your gut, right? That comes out of all of that, because so many people feel their emotions and their fears intestinally and guttily. Maybe guttily might be a new word I just created, who knows? But Stacey, you and I want to convince everyone listening tonight that we absolutely believe that you feel the feelings you feel. right? No one is doubting that at all. But we also want you to recognize that you also don't have to believe them to be true.
Yes. You know, that's another commonality between OCD and SUD is that they lie. They lie all the time.
That's good. Talk more about that. I think that's really good.
Well, your OCD tells you, different things. If you don't, wash, if you don't check, if you don't do the right rituals, the compulsions, that, bad things are going to happen. SUD promises that if you, do this, do that, do the substance, smoke the weed, do the opiates, it will all be better, but they just constantly, pick at you until you, feel like you have to give in. But it's a lie. It's not true. Nobody who's in recovery from substances ever comes back and said, hey, this time it worked. The alcohol was great. I had no problems. Things are fabulous. And nobody's come back and said, oh, I satisfied the OCD. I found the answer that satisfied the OCD.
Yeah. So you can never use enough substances and you can never give OCD enough information is what you're saying.
Yes. Although they will promise you just one more.
Yeah.
Nope.
Amanda says, I'm currently trying clomipramine, but only 4 weeks in. No antidepressant has helped. Neither has olanzapine. And again, those are discussions to have with your prescriber about trying some things. If there's a whole bunch of stuff that you've tried already and you haven't seen something work, then, keep working with those prescribers to try things out. All I ask is everybody keeps an eye on state-dependent learning. And if you're noticing that ERP is being interfered with, then can we figure out a way to take certain medications outside of the ERP time so that ERP has the opportunity to work, but you maybe are getting the relief that you're needing from whatever medications you're prescribed as well.
And one of the ways to know if a medication is going to interfere with the state-dependent learning is ask if it's possible to become addicted to it. I have a t-shirt that says, I'm not addicted to caffeine. I just drink it so the headaches don't come.
Yeah, there you go. Wait, doesn't that mean you're oh, never mind. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that really is, so SSRIs or other medications traditionally used for OCD do not fall into a classification of addictive substances. Adderall, benzodiazepines do.
Yeah. And that's really the question. So that's what we're watching for. But that's why you work with your prescriber and you take things as prescribed so that it doesn't get to that point, right? That's your goal. Fun. I've always loved the discussion on caffeine because I find that a lot of people have some misinformation about caffeine. Many people think the reason you get a headache is because your vessels are all shrunk up, but it's the opposite. You're getting a headache because your vessels have expanded. And caffeine actually shrinks your vessels, right? Caffeine actually shrinks them down. And so it's what you're feeling is the extra pressure because of the expansion of your blood vessels when you don't have the caffeine going on. Just a fun little thing to share with everybody. The first time I heard that, I was like, gosh, that makes so much sense. And totally opposite of the way that I thought it was working. But now that I hear that, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Let's see what else we got. People ask too, is this something that you can choose for yourself of what to do? Absolutely, right? I mean, we're just here to give information to people as well too. Everyone has the choice to go down what route they want for treatment and how they want to do it. But know that from a provider standpoint too, every ERP provider has a right to say, I'm not comfortable doing ERP with someone maybe who's taking a consistent level of an addictive substance that they're concerned would cause state-dependent learning, because they may say to themselves and to you, ethically, I feel like it might be a waste of time to do that. So everybody has the right to make the choices that they have around their treatment and which way that they want to go.
I know, just due to the nature of getting on insurance panels when I was first treating OCD and was not on any panels and had a sliding scale fee, I would tell people, I will work with you, but you're going to run into challenges and I don't want to waste your money.
Yeah.
So, I did a cost benefit analysis. You're going to get this much better with your plan right now. It's going to cost you a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you come back after, you're willing to not smoke, get this much better and use your money, because that was my ethics. I wanted people to get what they could when they could, because when I started, there were so few and OCD didn't exist, so it was a real problem.
Somebody asked, does ERP work effectively with OCD ritual actions as well as more of the pure O, it seems like, kind of things? I mean, yeah. We don't differentiate really. We just look at the fact that, your compulsions are mental instead of physical. Okay, then our job is to do ERP around mental compulsions versus physical compulsions. So I don't make a huge difference. How about for you, Stacey? But I just look at, all right, what are all your mental compulsions, and how can we run some interference on those?
Mm-hmm. Some things can be seen and some things can't, but they're still compulsions.
Right. Exactly. So what can we do to get in the way of those things happening? 100%.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let me see. Oh, here we go. My new theme is the fear that the devil possessed me and I don't know, or that everything good that's happening to me is the devil. It makes it hard to be grateful for the good things in my life. One time I had a similar question. Someone asked about how would I know if I had sold my soul to the devil? I'm afraid what if I have, but I don't know if I did. So I actually invited all demons and devils to join me at the end of the webinar. And I was going to hold an auction for my soul at the end of the webinar. Now, no demons or devils ended up joining the webinar and came on camera, which proves Stacey's point that I'm a soulless bastard. Or it could also be that maybe just because OCD says these things doesn't actually make it true or real, right? I've said this, and Stacey, love your opinion, but I've always said this. Anxiety is based on two words, and those two words are "what if," followed by the worst case scenario you could possibly dream of, and then an amazing amount of time trying to figure out if that might come true.
Oh yes.
Mm-hmm.
I used to call, and I still do with a lot of people I work with, I call it the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Because you just go down and down and down and down. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. And in all your years before treatment, Stacey, with OCD, how much information did it take for you to finally feel like you had gotten all the information you need to satisfy your OCD?
I'll let you know when it happens.
That's the answer. There you go. That's the right answer. Mm-hmm. And Stacey, I don't have OCD. I can't answer this one, right? I mean, my favorite compliment is people who say to me, I can't believe you don't have OCD because you tell me what my brain's thinking as if you did have OCD because you know it. And mm-hmm. I say, I'm just good at identifying patterns, and I understand the patterns of OCD. I know exactly which way it's going to go for people, right? But what I want from you, and just to help everybody listening to truly understand, is when presented with something in your head, right? Mm-hmm. And then presented with actual evidence that there's no support for that thing, how does that thing still win? I have a theory, but I want to hear from you first.
Well, because for me, I would feed it, and either directly or sideways.
All right.
And anytime you find a way to feed it, then it comes back and it wins. And it's there, and you pay attention to it. And feeding it sometimes is directly in terms of going and checking and finding out, and could this happen, and will this happen, and what are the chances of this happen? Going to Dr. Google.
Yeah, our best friend. Yeah.
Google was the worst thing to happen, because see, I'm old enough to remember life without Google.
Yeah. So
there were a lot of things I just could not check on, and that was
you
good.
Mean you didn't run to the encyclopedia and look things up?
No.
Or the 1972 World Book?
Yeah. No. Yeah. I just drove people in my life crazy asking reassurance questions. But I think it slides in different ways. And if you feed it comes back. So it finds a way, and it changes the question a bit. So if it's one thing about, like for me, food contamination, this is okay, this is not. But if I'm pushing back against this is not, then it will slide over to a different food, different thought process, different. So it changes the theme just a bit. Mm-hmm. Or something gets triggered. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many times I've been out and about, and I walked into a pharmacy one day. You know that video where the little kid's like running, and it says, "This is what you look like when your boss catches you leaving on Friday," and the kid turns around on their heel? Yeah, I walked into a pharmacy, and there was a kid standing at the pharmacist's desk picking up meds with his mom. He threw up. I turned on my heel and flew. You were out of there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's just, there was no way for me to know that was going to happen. It was a real life event, but man, did that set things off.
So here's my theory, and I want to see what you think. Mm-hmm. Though you may be looking at the fact that in this out here, everyone else living in this life, you have no proof of what is going on in your head is occurring right now. The reply from OCD will be, yeah, but what if next time? Yeah. And that's enough to hook people into, well, okay, so maybe next time will be the time. And therefore it's still worth doing all the checking and all the compulsions or whatever else I'm doing in the off chance that next time might actually be the time that this thing actually occurs.
Okay. Follow me, because this is a bit of a rabbit hole.
I got you. Mm-hmm.
Lottery earnings from people buying tickets in a lot of states go to school systems.
Yes.
And the ironic thing about that is most school systems do not teach probability and statistics.
Right.
If you understood probability and statistics, you would probably not buy a lottery ticket.
Correct.
Because you'd understand the odds of winning are astronomical. But we do. Because maybe next time. Mm-hmm. Maybe next time. Maybe next time. So it's the same type of thing. Maybe next time. That gets stuck. Like, okay, this time will be different. Substance use disorder. I know last time I got in a lot of trouble, but this time will be different. Yeah.
It's what if, and what if's cousin is yeah, but what if.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what if.
And there's always one more yeah, but what if than there is logical answer.
Yeah. And that's sort of what I was saying in terms of it changes a little bit. So, okay, so maybe not that, but what if this? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when you get this under, more, I don't want to use the word control, but you've ERP'd it, it has less power. Then it goes, but what if this? Mm-hmm. And as you say, it's predictable, because eventually what happened is you start to learn, oh, but what if this? Okay, little dude, I've caught you.
Yeah.
I know this game, and we are not playing today.
Mm-hmm. And we have people chiming in here. We get some good laughing emotions. They like this. And they also are talking about the idea that for me, it's not trusting what I see, think, and feel, right? That can you ever trust enough? And the answer, of course, is no, right? You can, with OCD, you can never have enough trust of anything. Right? Because what if, and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, and one of the realities for both conditions is being willing to be uncertain.
Oh, but I don't want uncertainty, Stacey. I want fact. I want truth. I want 100% guarantee.
Okay, good luck. But that's also, if you think about substance use disorder, I want 100% guarantee that I won't feel bad if I stop using. I want 100% guarantee that my anxiety won't come back. I want 100% guarantee that I won't have, OCD or, symptoms or any cravings or anything like that. And that's unrealistic. And I think we talk about obsessions coming and like those unwanted thoughts being in your mind. The same is true for SUD. Having a craving is not the problem. It's your response to the craving that's the problem. And a lot of people do have cravings for substances. I mean, I have long-term recovery from SUD, and I have walked by, somebody gets what used to be my favorite drink, and I'm like, okay.
Hello, old friend.
Hello.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, what are you doing?
Your cologne is as delicious today as it was 20
as
years
it
ago.
was 20 plus years ago. Yeah. But I think we need to talk about that as part of the process, that, it's not the obsessive thought, it's the response to it. It's not the craving, it's the response to it. And part of the goal is just to change how you interact with these aspects of your brain.
Yeah. And they say they've been resisting checking what it means to be possessed. That's awesome, because you're never going to find the satisfying answer, right?
No.
I've loved the fact that people with OCD will say, okay, well, just one more check. And that's always the 97th, just one more that they do. But finally they find something that's like, oh, darn it. I wish I hadn't checked that now, because I found the one person in the world that it didn't apply to. And what if now I become the second one of that, right? I mean, yeah, I said the other day, I want to run this past you, Stacey, and see what you think. This is one of, you know how once in a while you say something and you like, oh, I got to write that down and remember that because that was pretty good. So this was mine. OCD makes everyone else an expert at something. As in, if I've looked up 50 doctors who all tell me I don't have a problem, but then I see this one patient one time who said, well, one time I went to a doctor, they said I didn't, but then they thought maybe I did. Boom, that's it. There's the expert.
Yep.
Found the expert. That's the one. Yeah. Expert identified. And now we're going to go with that person and trust them more than all the 50 doctors.
All the others, yes.
Yeah, everything like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the other one I think I said? It was the only certainty that you'll have is the attempt to find or to stop uncertainty is miserable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Round and round and round and round and round and round and round.
Right. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's see if there's any other ones. Part of recovery has been scary because I feel as though I'm letting go of things that keep my morals in check. Any tips on how to navigate this? Well, there's so many people in the world who have morals without obsessive compulsive disorder. I think that you've bought into the lie that it was your obsessions and compulsions that kept your morals in check, when in reality, it was your obsessions and compulsions that led you to doubt your morals and fed into why you needed to do more obsessions and more compulsions to maintain your morals. Because if you didn't do all those things to maintain your morals, then your morals might fall out of check.
Repeat that 10 times fast.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think it made sense. I hope it made sense.
Mm-hmm. It made sense. It was just a lot.
It's a mouthful.
Like,
it's a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't give short answers to somebody. They just don't exist, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's an interesting thing, and I know we don't have a ton of time, but
we have 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yes. Mm-hmm. But just touching a little bit from a family perspective.
Oh, please, yes.
One of the interesting things I have done with some family members is to take the DSM criteria for SUD and take out the word substance and put in the word worry.
Interesting. Walk us through this.
So, have you worried more than you intended?
And versus have you used a substance more than you intended?
Okay.
Yes.
Has your worry interfered with your ability to engage in life activities such as work, school, or social activities?
Versus has your substance done that? Yes. Continue on.
Have you experienced negative consequences due to your worry?
Wow. This is a fascinating line. Keep going. I've never thought of it this way.
Well,
but this is mind-blowing right now. So
but that's what you do is you go through the criteria for the family members, but you input the word worry, and you realize then the effect that substance use disorder has on the family system. Because then people engage in behaviors to control their worry. So they could be, making sure their loved one is showing up at treatment, checking their phone to see who they're talking to, making sure they showed up at work and they're not picking up drugs somewhere, going through their, clothes, smelling their breath, checking, all these things. Or that's when they're in recovery or flipping the script, and they're worried that if they don't, do certain things like give them money, make sure they're okay, make sure they're feeling well, or they have a place to live, food to eat, and taking care of all of them, which partly is good caretaking and a little enabling. And those two things are different because your family's still your family. And I do not subscribe to you can't help someone until they hit rock bottom. You want to hit rock bottom? I got an easy solution. Stop digging. Wherever you are right now can be your rock bottom. But family members do a lot of, in OCD, we call it accommodation. In substance use disorder, we call it more codependent. But what it really is I'm going to change my behavior based on how you are doing. And I don't know if it works the same, but, I'm thinking this through almost with the OCD criteria. Do you have unwanted thoughts around worry? Do you find yourself engaging in behaviors that you didn't intend to because of worry? It kind of still fits in there for the family members as to how OCD is impacting their lives.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm going to think about that a lot tonight.
Yeah. Well, because both disorders are family involved, And
so true. Oh, yes. Yeah. We could do a whole show just on the co-occurrence experience of what it's like for family members to live with someone who has a substance use disorder, an OCD, or the combination. And maybe we bring in some people who are willing to discuss that for some guests. We know some people who could speak on that. So.
But it's just it's an interesting way to look at for family members how this is impacting their lives. And you find that there's physical responses, emotional responses, and some of those can turn into health conditions, mental or physical, for the family members trying to cope with a loved one's OCD or SUD.
And what do you think of this? The person with the condition sees the family worrying so much, which could be a stressor for them, which then is the key to do more of what they're doing because they're picking up on the worry and that stresses them out. And their quick fix solution to stress is to use substances or do compulsions. And then it's a flywheel and it's just feeding itself over and over and over again.
Yes. Yep. And in both disorders, we find that there's better outcomes when family is involved. So if you can work with family, if the individual is coming into treatment, I always ask, who do you want involved in your treatment? And if it's not your immediate family, because there are some challenges there, I've worked with many individuals in the LGBTQ community who couldn't involve their family because their family didn't want anything to do with them. So we brought in their family of choice. I've worked with people with SUD who bring, involve their sponsor. But if you have family, it's, good to engage them in the treatment process so they learn how OCD is affecting them, how it's affecting you, how they can be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Because families have their frustrations too, and just stop it is not effective for either disorder.
No, go watch Bob Newhart for that if you want to see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I showed that to someone today in therapy session. It was pretty fun.
Yep.
Fascinating stuff. Yeah. I love the idea of just replacing the word worry in there and just shows you the effect of things. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's see if we have any other on the thank you says I still can't find a way to stop my terrifying what ifs, and nor should you be trying to, right? Because that would mean that you could stop intrusive thoughts from happening, and research shows that pretty much everyone in the world experiences intrusive thoughts. I think the research showed it was 94%. I believe the other 6% were liars and did not experience them.
Yeah. That's where you come into that social bias. Like, oh, no, I don't have any intrusive thoughts. No. I'm not going to tell you what's going through my head.
It never happened to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it just, if your goal is finding a way to stop what ifs, you're always going to have what ifs, because you will, as I like to point out, you will be pink elephanting the whole experience. There's my pink elephant. And you will be trying not to think of something. And of course, the moment you attempt to not think of something, you are going to think about it. So, the question was just LOL. So I should watch movies and read stories about possessions for OCD ERP. Eventually, probably that would be something that people would do. I mean, I've had people do it, right?
Yep.
We've watched movies together and saw that. Yeah, well, look at that. It turned out well. By the way, we have just under 3 minutes here, so we'll see if the demons show up to auction off both of our souls on this one. Stacey, I think you are also soulless, and therefore we will still get no devils or demons who show up here at the end for the auction of our souls. But we'll see what happens in the next 2 minutes, if that's the case. But as we're getting to the end there, Stacey, any wrap up things that you want to leave as a message tonight for everybody who's listening?
Well, I would just ask that, people to share this webinar series. You never know who you're going to help. The more we can get the word out there, because one of my major goals for this community, the OCD SUD community, is to realize recovery is possible and that you are not alone, and that we want more people speaking about this co-occurrence. And eventually we'd like to, develop a way to treat this concurrently. You did a great deal of work with that, with some of the programs you started. Mm-hmm. But we really want to get it out there more. So this is one of the best things that we have going in terms of people coming and asking questions. So share this as far as you can go, and go to the website, ask the questions. We're here to help.
Yeah, and I always like to say, if the lies told by continuing to use substances and OCD were true, then Stacey and I would prescribe lots of drugs and alcohol and cocaine and PCP, as well as more compulsions to everybody. And if we met people on the street who were having kind of a bad day, we would say, we've got the cure for that. How about some cocaine and compulsions? Why don't you try those? And it might actually make your day better for you if that was the case. So it's easy to believe the lies that OCD and substance use tells you, that they're actually going to be helpful. But the reality is that we don't prescribe those as ways to help people get better. We help people get rid of the influence of those things so that they can live a life without all of that and have the clarity that they're wanting. So we thank all of you for joining us. Stacey, once again, great to see you. Love our monthly get-togethers here. It's always amazing how fast the hour goes by. And we'll see all of you again in a month. Have a good one, everybody.